there, and a warm welcome. We are so excited to have all of you, from innovators to entrepreneurs, join us today for the official launch event, the DOE Emerging Tech Studio. We would also like to take a moment to especially thank our program sponsors, the National Nuclear Security Administration and Department of Energy, Office of Technology Transitions. I'm your host, Ish Singh, and together with my co-host, Amanda Stein, Robert Wines, Joel Kanu from FedTech, we'll be walking you through today's events. All right, so we've got a highly interactive agenda lined up, from keynotes to discussions with our respected guests, where we'll get to hear live the agency's perspectives on the deep tech landscape, and also an alumni success story with Lunano, where they will share their studio journey with us. So we are really glad that you could join us here today. Let's strive to keep this event fun. We highly recommend using the Q&A feature to ask your questions. We welcome questions for the speakers and also about the program, recruiting, and how to apply. We'll try to answer these questions live as we go along, else we'll follow up with an email. Now, for those of you that are new to FedTech, well, we are a DC-based venture firm. And through our programs, we work with individuals like you, companies and government agencies, to chart a viable path for commercialization and for commercializing these breakthrough technologies to real-world impact. Since 2015, we've built over 200 teams. To continue the good work and to stay at the bleeding edge of innovation, I'm thrilled to announce the DOE Emerging Tech Studio program with this short video. So please have your volume up and do give this about a second for the video to load. Here we go. All right, so I hope that got you energized to ignite new possibilities with us. So as the NNSA and DOE continue to invest millions of dollars into national laboratories, we aim to create a space for new voices to shape the future of technology leadership and to see these scientific discoveries achieve their maximum public return and impact. So to advance the economic and energy and national security interests of the nation, there are three exciting offerings to inspire action. So the first one, Tech Talks, which is primarily geared towards the inventors that we have in our audience here today. This is an early stage professional skills development program and an opportunity for us to start building a relationship with you, the inventors, as early as possible in this program, which then bleeds into the startup studio. And think of this as the beating heart of the overall program, where you, the entrepreneurs, will go through an evidence-based journey to identify a technology market fit opportunity alongside with the inventors. And lastly, the Venture Summit. This is a culmination of the program as a public pitch event. This is an opportunity for you to pitch to a public audience and network with potential investors. All right, so to kick us off, please join me in welcoming Jill Ruby, Undersecretary for Nuclear Security and Administrator for the NNSA, with this short video.
Hi everybody, I'm Jill Ruby, Administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration. I want to thank everyone who is joining us today at this virtual launch event for our DOE Emerging Tech Studio. Our central mission at NNSA, to maintain America's nuclear weapons and to work with our global partners to promote nonproliferation, has made our enterprise a scientific powerhouse. Our R&D efforts to advance nuclear security technology have brought to life many new inventions across fields like biochemistry and healthcare, the automotive industry, climate change, and more. As a former lab director, I've seen extraordinary innovation across our workforce firsthand. In fact, the nuclear security enterprise has more patents than any government agency, making NNSA, along with the larger Department of Energy, a catalyst for innovation. The technology we create makes people's lives better in countless ways. All of that is thanks to the brilliant minds at our labs, plants, and sites, and our strategic partnership programs team at headquarters. To bring these technologies to market, our DOE NNSA team has developed partnership programs such as this joint effort with FedTech. These collaborative tech transfer partnerships with the private sector pair our scientific experts with aspiring entrepreneurs. And much like our M&O model at NNSA, these partnerships bring together academia, industry, and government to solve some of the most challenging problems with cutting-edge solutions. Today, you will learn how DOE's Emerging Tech Studio can help inventors from across our enterprise overcome many of the barriers that scientists and innovators face when they enter the commercial market with their lab-developed technology. Our Emerging Tech Studio helps make the leap from lab to commercial market less daunting. So I encourage each of you here today to apply and bring your dream technology to life with this new DOE NNSA venture.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Administrator, for the kind opening remarks and for setting the tone for our discussions. Up next, please join me in welcoming Dr. Fraser from the NNSA for her welcome and introduction. Over to you, Dr. Fraser.
Good afternoon, everyone. It may be morning for some, depending where you're joining us from. I'm so happy to be here with you today. And I could not have asked for a better introduction to what the National Nuclear Security Administration does. Administrator Ruby, as she mentioned, is well-versed in both the laboratory and the headquarters aspects of NNSA. You heard stockpile stewardship of nuclear weapons, nuclear nonproliferation, naval reactors. The budgets we're talking about are, in the $20 to $30 billion. So we're talking about a lot of work here that goes towards national and international nuclear security. So what else should you have heard? You heard R&D, you heard science, you heard technology. And you can imagine that with those three major missions, science and technology are really the pivotal aspects that allow us to maintain our deterrence, protect our allies, innovate, be leading edge, ensure a secure future for the nation. So science and technology is integral to that. And within that, technology transfer is really what allows that to happen. The innovation, the new ideas, the maximization of the capabilities we have, all of that is what you guys bring to the table and what we at NNSA highly value in terms of what can happen when smart minds innovate, think of things in different ways, come together. The different sectors that were mentioned with academia, industry, and government, private sector, startups, all of these things need to come to the table to ensure that we're able to deliver on our mission. As you can imagine, as technology grows, as science advances, these endeavors get bigger and bigger, but the budgets aren't infinite, right? And so we need to think about how to do things in new ways. So what do we do in the Office of Strategic Partnership Programs? We do what we can to enable the wonderful work that's going on at the laboratories, to bring in entrepreneurs, to bring in academia, to make those partnerships happen so that we can use both our capabilities and those of others. We work with the interagency. So we bring together the people that help make this happen. We support the national laboratories, key among those, Livermore, Los Alamos, Sandia. We also have other plants and sites that are integral to technology transfer with Kansas City, Savannah River. So could go on, but you will hear about those other aspects and labs, plants, and sites either today or through your engagement long-term with NNSA. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I think I went into a little bit more detail than just an introduction, but as you can see from my remarks and those of the administrator, this is really an important area for us. We have a technology transfer framework that really helps guide us, and we have the top level call to action from the secretary and undersecretary to make sure that technology transfer stays in the forefront. So with that, I will cut my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frazier, for the warm welcome and introduction. Up next, please join me in welcoming Marcos from DOE OTT for his welcome and introduction. Over to you, Marcos.
Thanks very much, Ish. And I'm realizing here that I think I'm wearing the exact same outfit, which is very telling. This is, I have the one go-to outfit apparently for webinars in this new COVID world, and here I am delivering consistently. Thank you for the warm introduction, and I first just want to start by saying that I'm delighted to be OTT is delighted to be partnering with NNSA and the FedTech team to launch this emerging tech studio. On the DOE side, I do want to give a special shout out to Dr. Frazier's team, Julio Hudson, who's really been the visionary of a lot of this partnership from the beginning, and his very able collaborator, Zach Bays from my office. This is a multi-year effort that got us to where we are today, and we are very grateful to them and absolutely to our FedTech colleagues as well. OTT is a fairly new office, but also fast growing. And I'd say it's been very exciting to see this partnership with NNSA with FedTech evolve alongside our office's expanding mission. We've seen some real results from our involvement with the program in recent years, formation of about a dozen companies focused on commercializing DOE technologies. So really exciting, very tangible outcomes. This partnership has allowed us to continually grow our offerings and opportunities to enable some of that commercialization of lab technology in particular, which is really a core mission for OTT. Very briefly, what's OTT? Tech Transitions Office. Our mission is to expand the commercial and public impact of the department's research, development, demonstration, and deployment portfolio, that's RDD&D, and to advance the economic, energy, and national security interests of the nation. Why not throw that in? But really, given that we do not have the budget that NNSA does, we're about a $20 million budget, very small drop in the bucket of the larger departmental agency budget. We have to be targeted. I would sort of summarize it this way. We fully respect and appreciate and celebrate publications of that as an output and outcome of the lab innovation process, but we want to go beyond those publications. We are market analysts, we are connectors, industry connectors, we're program designers and managers, tech transfer champions, workforce developers, we fund incubators, we generally try to catalyze national lab commercialization. I would say that the way to think about us is as a knowledge hub and an innovation sandbox. And I think this program is a representative example of that. We were trying to test new ways to commercialize activities and technologies across the department. And happy to have this discussion here. Thanks again for the invitation and appreciate the great work that's got us to where we are today. Exciting times.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marcos, for that introduction. And this is a perfect segue into our next segment here. And I'm going to call upon my co-host, Amanda Stein, to moderate a panel discussion with both Dr. Fraser and Marcos. Over to you, Amanda. We'll just give this a second or two as we get the speakers prepped up. Stand by.
Hi all. Can you see me and hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Ish, for the wonderful introductions. Dr. Fraser and Marcos, thank you so much for your time today. So what we're going to do now is just ask a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience to ask some questions as well. So please feel free to put questions in the chat. Both Ish and I are going to be monitoring them. And, no topics off limits, like feel free to ask things and we will go from there. So my first question is actually to both of you. I would love to talk about what trends you're seeing in terms of the various sectors of both energy and national security in terms of innovation and IP coming out of the labs that you work with. Maybe Dr. Fraser, you want to start with that question. Oh, Dr. Fraser, you're muted.
All right, sorry about that. So I think the trends that we're seeing over in NNSA are similar to those that are being seen more globally, right? So biotechnology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, space technology, hypersonics. So I think that there are a lot of things that we're seeing in our sector that really translate to a number of different sectors, microelectronics, nanotech. So, being really smart, going really small, being really efficient, additive manufacturing. So I don't think that they're necessarily unique, which is why these partnerships are so pivotal. I think that it's those partnerships and us being able to apply those to our various applications is really where we're going to be able to leverage and get the most for our resources. So thank you.
Wonderful. And Marcos, how about you? What trends are you seeing?
So first of all, I'll boldly attempt to put a wrapper on what Dr. Fraser just said. And I think there's a clear theme here of sort of platform technologies, which have so many different applications, right? Big data is a big thing that we do at our national labs. We've done number crunching on COVID solutions. Back in the day, we did a lot of the Human Genome Project initial data crunching. So there's some neat platform technologies, some of which can leverage the unique national lab facilities that are I think, an interesting play here. But being an old budget CFO guy, I actually would just go back to the question of where's the money? And if you look at the infrastructure law, huge infusion of cash here into the DOE system, billions of dollars that we've not seen before, and frankly are trying to wrap our heads and minds around. But in areas like hydrogen, right? direct air capture. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of remote and rural grid distributed environment technology. And I think an interesting point here is just that whereas in the past, there was very much a sort of technology push that was embraced and a natural sort of outlet for DOE's investments in R&D. We just pursued cool stuff because it was there to be pursued, and we had brilliant scientists that wanted to pursue it. Now I'd say there's just as much, and this maybe gets to the point of the question, of a market pull aspect that needs to be incorporated. As much as we have $8 billion to spend on hydrogen hubs, that is not going to create a hydrogen economy for America. We were talking about billions of previously, almost unimaginable funding, but that needs to catalyze trillions to get us to the decarbonized economy. So there's an industry engagement and dialogue that needs to be happening and is happening, which is very new space, I'd say, for the Department of Energy. So it's that market pull and thinking about commercialization deployment pathway that is now part of our core mission as well.
That's really interesting. And so as you move forward, are there other specific things, as you mentioned, related to maybe electrification of transportation or various other national security implications that you're seeing, especially in today's environment? Is there maybe something specific that you want to bring up?
Oops, that was back to me.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think the hydrogen hubs are a great place to start because, frankly, it's an all of nation approach here. Again, we're trying to catalyze trillions with our billions, and whereas a very targeted solar PV cell technology that makes a PV cell more efficient, you can plug into an existing supply chain most likely. There are end users, there's a market regulatory framework that service is valued. There's a way to have generate economic value. Hydrogen, we're just starting to figure this sort of stuff out, right? And whereas you may have a hydrogen producer, you're probably not going to have a single end buyer for your hydrogen at some multi-billion-dollar hub level. So you're talking about aggregating demand. So I think it's actually an interesting case where often in the government we say the private sector knows how to commercialize best. It's like, how quickly can you get it to them? This, I truly think, is a case where no one really knows how to do this and no one's done it. And it needs to be a dialogue and partnership that get us there. And again, we now have a funding and a new organizational structure at the DOE that hopefully will enable a lot of that dialogue to occur.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Fraser, I'd like to pass this back over to you and learn a little bit more about the NNSA innovation landscape. What does this mean to you? What's happening over at NNSA? A lot, well, I know.
Yeah, well, right now we are in the program office. I would say we are building and kind of in the early stages of that. And our partnership with folks like FedTech, our partnership with OTT really are really key pieces of being able to grow out what we'd like to do programmatically. So the idea is to support and foster what's happening at the national laboratories and really be able to build and leverage on that to grow the program out. So in terms of innovation, we are looking at I think one of the questions that came up on the screen were, do we have to stay in these core areas, right? Or can we be more forward-leaning, fringe, creative, and things like that? So we're trying to really enable those types of things. When it comes to things like technology and new ideas, it's impossible to predict a priori what's going to make that key difference, right? And what's going to kind of shift a complete paradigm and way of thinking about things. So right now, what's going on at NNSA is us trying to build out those spaces for people to really test out new ideas, things that are at the intersection of various disciplines, things that have kind of maybe even a human, machine interface type thing, automation, just really bringing various aspects together and having, the different skill sets, right? So while we all obviously need science and technology, we also need business majors, right? We also need lawyers. We also need people who understand, business models and entrepreneurship. So trying to create those spaces for new ideas that, where lightning may strike, and also trying to bring together those communities are really where we've been focusing recently.
Yep. And you mentioned those lawyers as startup founders and folks in the government. I am sure you work with those lawyers a lot.
No, not too much.
So Marcos, I'd like to throw this back to you. What is your vision for the DOE labs in terms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Amanda. And I'll give you the right answer and then also try to be maybe a little provocative with this. So I think stepping back again with the infusion of funding, a secretary who's out there saying every day, deployment, deployment, deployment. Entrepreneurial approaches at the national labs have never been more important, and the broader tech commercialization mission has never been more important. We're an 8-year-old office, and I say the first 5 years or so, we were just sort of trying to find our way in this DOE world, and just saying, hey, commercialization is an important mission was, not necessarily met with applause or with everyone agreeing. Now that's just, no one has to explain that our mission matters. Everyone agrees this is really, really important. And it's actually more of a question of how we can target in our engagement, because everyone's doing it now. Whether or not commercialization is in your mission statement, you're doing commercialization work and thinking about how you can enable that, which is fantastic. So I think, again, whether it's national security, Dr. Fraser in the MSA world can speak more to that, or the climate change mitigation efforts, just promoting international competitiveness. The national labs just have a huge say. They're truly a center of gravity for scientific and technical inquiry. And there's tremendous potential there. Some of it latent, I'd add, for applications across numerous sectors. And I think you can look at the patent generation stats. You can look at the publications coming out of labs. They're clearly hubs of innovation. The question, though, is how can we equip them to capitalize on these unique strengths? And this is where I think it's actually a bit of a nuanced answer. We have programs like FedTech. OTT also supports an energy I-Core program. Most federal agencies with experimental research have an I-Core program. Ours is tailored for a national lab system. What I have found interesting is it's easy to say, let's turn every lab employee into an entrepreneur. And that's not a good idea. First of all, most of the lab employees, I'd say more than half, not every lab employee wants to be an entrepreneur. They're happy doing scientific research, pursuing technical inquiry at the bench. And let's embrace that. And I want them to be there doing that at our national labs. That is great. There's a subset of the population, this is writ large, as well as at the national labs, that does want to be an entrepreneur. Right. It has that DNA that is very comfortable fundraising, pitching, marketing, connecting people. And what I want to do is ensure that we have the targeted resources and investment and support for that population. Whether it's 5%, 20%, that's not for me to say. But when someone's raising their hand saying, we want to do something, let's support them.
Yeah, Marcos, that's a really great segue. A lot of folks in the chat right now have questions about the specific Startup Studio program, which we will be going over. And my colleague, Rob, is answering some of those in the chat. I want to move over to some of the questions that are related to what both of you are doing, some of them that are in the chat. And Brian Dolan has a really interesting question that Dr. Fraser maybe you'd be interested in answering. Of how, if at all, do national security concerns inform innovation goals? Is there consensus regarding technologies that improve energy independence, energy international independence versus independence, and especially in the context of the NNSA? Dr. Fraser, we'd love to hear some of your insights related to that, especially based on what's happening in the current environment and current events.
Sure. So I will say this, that, the lead time for a lot of our large capabilities is decades, right? So if you want to put a national ignition facility on the ground, get it up and running, you've got to have that 10 to 15 year lead time. So those huge, barges, right, don't really shift, in real time or in a reasonable amount of time. What they do, though, is those capabilities enable, right, advancements changes in science, new ways of doing things, right? So it's not so much how it impacts the capabilities, but what it does do is that the science impacts what we're able to do. The technology impacts what we're able to do. So I just wanted to make that distinction between, what may be within the walls, right? And then what may be up here in the minds of the people who are doing the innovations, who are having the new thoughts, trying things in new ways. And so a large part of what I personally think of as deterrence is really the expertise, right? And what people are able to do. And what having things like tech transfer and having new ideas that may not be, your traditional high energy density, models and subcritical experiments and things like that. People who are doing things in different ways and getting to various answers, that's actually part of our deterrence, right? That people have such mastery of their technology, understand the phenomena associated with different areas of science, understand how to apply it to different things. So the weird way that this it's hard to answer is that if something is super useful, that's when you'll stop hearing about it, right? Because we're doing nuclear security.
Yeah.
But just, rest assured that, those things that are applicable both to the entrepreneurial and commercialization side, are useful to us as well. So I don't want to go too far down that road. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful.
Wonderful. I appreciate it. I have one more question from the chat and then one more question that I just want to end on. And so what are the best practices for early stage founders can collaborate with OTT and develop technologies for the built environment? So essentially something that would be useful back to the DOE or NNSA. What advice would you have for folks who are interested in going in that direction?
Sure. I'll try to cut me off if you need to, but I'll try to answer another question I'm seeing in the chat as well as that one. So in general, I'd say the national labs, as folks may or may not know, are actually managed by private entities. They are users of the latest tech, equipment, et cetera, supporting larger facilities, and relationships with them can be managed directly with them. We don't make the purchases of the equipment necessarily. It was passed through for that private entity to conduct. And there are technology opportunities with the SBIR STTR program. STTR in particular is often seen, especially the Office of Science version of it. It's going to be information I share as a follow-up as well, but they're basically developing technologies that, somewhat like NNSA, are then going to be used by that program office. In this case, in the context of the labs, Dr. Fraser just addressed the NNSA side. More broadly, access to the labs, and there's just a quick advertisement. I've seen a lot of questions on this. How do you just tap into the lab resources? We do have a website, labpartnering.org, that allows you to start at least to chop away at this behemoth that is the national lab system, and do some keyword searches on facilities, intellectual property, subject matter experts, even success stories of commercialized technology coming out of our national lab system. So all 17 labs and the MNSA production facilities must have content on there. And if you just want to know about cathode materials research, it'll pop up 40 or 50 or so pre-identified, embedded subject matter experts from the labs. It'll give you hundreds of bits of patents and IP and where to go for those. So labpartnering.org is a great place to start.
Thank you. And Dr. Fraser, I would just love to end this panel discussion with you. And what does diversity in entrepreneurship mean to you? I mean, FedTech has been working very hard in this space, and we think that diversity is extremely important when selecting our entrepreneurs and our mentors for various programs. But it would be wonderful to hear your thoughts related to this as well.
Yeah. So obviously it's very important. So that's the softball part of the question, right? But why is it important? It's important because you want the best answers, you want the best solutions, you want the most critical analysis, you want people who think differently, come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, have different expertise, right? And these are all synonyms for diversity, whether it's that you're a first-year college student whether it's that you've been in the armed services, you're doing continuing education, you're, an early career scientist, you're a late career scientist, right? You're Black, you're a woman, you're a person, who has a different sexual orientation. All of these things, right, kind of bring to the table a different perspective. And it's only through that different perspective that you're really going to get the most innovative, useful, and highly applicable, solutions that will meet the needs of everyone. So it's vital. And we do ourselves, I think, a disservice when we don't have the widest pool with the broadest experience coming to the table. We're missing something, right? And we don't even have the people there to tell us what we're missing.
Right,
So,
exactly. Beautiful words and wonderful final closing thoughts for this panel. You both are wonderful and we appreciate your time today. I'm going to throw this back to my colleague Ish. And Ish, thank you for letting me lead this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda, and Marcos and Dr. Frazier. Thank you so much for your time in fielding questions. And I see a lot of really good questions around the program and the overall recruitment process. Robert's going to drop my contact information in the chat here, and also again towards the end. If anyone would want to get on a call with me, if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm happy to address those questions with you as well. Okay, so I'm really excited to call upon Team Leonano. We are thrilled to have Bradley and Nasu join us, and I know that they're sitting in the room here as well. And please take it away, guys, and walk us through what the studio experience was like for you and help us paint that picture.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So hi, everyone. I'm Bradley Duckworth. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunano. And our company is a manufacturer of disinfectant, cleaning, and deodorizing ingredients that's based on technology that was developed at Sandia National Laboratory. We work in the B2B space, and our customers can integrate these ingredients into their products to either actively disinfect, provide an antimicrobial surface, fight malodor, or even brighten the surface. And an example of this integration could include a cleaning, deodorizing, and disinfectant spray for the home, or a laundry pre-soak that cleans, deodorizes, and brightens fabrics. And what really differentiates our product from other chemical ingredients like ammonium, bleach, chlorine, is that it lasts continuously for extended periods of time, and it's also non-toxic. And let's see, Nasu, if I'm not mistaken, we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary of being involved both with the startup studio and as a company.
Correct. We have started, we joined FedTech Startup Studio about 2 years ago. And our company is almost 2 years. We are a few months short of that. So it's been quite a journey so far. But after you, Bradley, I'm happy to give our listeners some highlights about this journey as well.
Sure. Yeah, so essentially, we joined the startup studio back in February of 2020, in which that time period is also relevant to kind of the formation of the company and how we got to where we were today. And the startup studio really provided the mechanism for us to not only develop a product roadmap, but then also a commercialization strategy. And that really involved an initial hypothesis. So we had a great experience with the startup weekend where we talked about, how we can go about developing an MVP, how we can develop different use cases for the products, and actually come with arrive at a business model. And we use the startup, the lean startup methodology, where you go out and discuss, you basically do customer interviews with people who might be potential customers of your product or subject matter experts in that field. And initially, this is a nanotechnology. We initially thought about some of the classical or some of the use cases that you really think of at first, like semiconductors or catalyst in the oil and gas industry. And what was great about the startup studio is that we were allowed to really explore all those while at the same time working with the inventor to get feedback on that and determine if the technology is actually fit for use. And through this process, we really had a kind of a breakthrough where we were looking at these different use cases. But at the time, as we all know, the COVID pandemic was really starting to spread around the world. And we knew that our technology, because it being metal-based and metals having a natural antimicrobial effect, we thought, okay, well, why don't we explore this? So I reached out to, through a warm contact, who at the time was the head of HSE at Lyft, and he talked about all the problems that they were having trying to keep their cars disinfected for customers. You know, they were using things like ammonium and hydrogen peroxide, which were giving customers headaches, and they were also quite dangerous. And basically, I asked him, well, if you were able to have a product that didn't, you know, give your customers headaches, it wasn't unpleasant to smell, and it worked continuously, would this be something that would be interesting for you? And he said, absolutely yes. And that's really kind of what the customer discovery process was designed to do, is really to have a potential customer say, I will buy that. So we really ran with that and validated that. And we spoke with airline executives, hoteliers, restaurateurs, just a multitude of different stakeholders, and further validated that business model and started to really think about what the product should be, who the customer should be, and really starting down a commercialization path. And we really got a lot of great support from, we were assigned mentors in the startup studio, and then we also had instructors, and we were, you know, definitely given license to bounce ideas off them and product concepts. And that really helped us kind of refine what we were doing. And after that, we then had an MVP where we basically tested the technology in the lab, and it actually found that it had worked much better than we were expecting. So, you know, there's a lot of great mechanisms for funding, getting that technology to out of the kind of lab or bench scale to commercialization. But we decided to go pursue kind of private funding because we already had something that we could sell. Yeah, so then we went through that phase 1 research, further kind of getting data together, because we knew that we wanted to contact companies in the consumer products goods space that, you know, think of a company like Procter and Gamble that, you know, have a large global presence that, you know, works in the same areas that our technology does. And through that, we were able to form the company. We worked with Sandia and got a lot of great support from them in terms of getting a licensing agreement that works for us. And you know, at that point, we had the technology, we had the commercial model, we had the company established, we had the IP structure, which was really we were really able to do that through the support of both FedTech and then also Sandia, they were incredible throughout that process, and the inventor as well. And at that point, we were able to get in touch with and really start engagement with 2 different consumer products goods companies. I guarantee you have their products in their house. And we're currently working on research projects with them to understand how we could actually integrate our technology into their products. And happy to report that we're getting really good results and are moving towards a commercialization path with those companies. We've also been able to leverage the existing IP and apply for a global patent in terms of the fields of use that we're working with. So that's further strengthening and bolstering our IP position. And as I mentioned, we're also working towards a joint development agreement with these 2 companies that we're engaged with. and then also starting to work with a consulting firm on understanding how can we actually scale up manufacturing. And that's where we are today.
Excellent. And if I may add a few things, if I guess we have a few minutes left. I want to speak to the entrepreneurs, if I may. In this program, or if you start a company, couple of entrepreneurs, you come together. You may know each other or you don't. In our case, we didn't know each other. So first thing, the FedTech program really helped us know each other and to get alignment among these three founders. That we were initially three, now we are down to two. So the program really helped us to establish a good rhythm of working together, because frankly, we did not know each other. And I'm sure we're all on the same page on that, that it's so important to work as a team. Secondly, when we started, we were almost, I would say, in the middle of a cloud of uncertainties. There were so many things, so many ideas, which we had no idea which direction to go to. So we have followed the FedTech trainings and interviewed. I guess we did about 500 interviews as recommended by almost dictated, I would say, by FedTech. And that was really one of the great things that we have done. So, and with that, we were able to better understand the industries where we had no idea initially. We learned a lot and we killed so many ideas so we could focus on the right one. And then on the way, when time came, we found a startup-friendly lawyer, legal firm. I think that's quite critical. We found a good patent attorney. I think that's very critical. And then over time, we needed some money. And then we started looking around into angel investors and VCs and all that. So we quickly figured out the value of doing a friends and family round, which is a small round, but it tells a lot to your future investors, because we realized that many investors nowadays start asking, have you done your friends and family round? Because if your friends haven't trusted you, how am I going to trust you? So we have actually, this week, we've just closed very successfully our friends and family round. So these are a few critical steps that we went through. And we are now successfully developing new customers. Customers are showing a lot of interest thanks to all the wonderful scientific data we were able to produce. And we did not have all the skill set as founders, we did not have all the technical skills that we needed. So we have brought on and still bringing in technical support as in the forms of advisors by giving them just equity. So we are becoming stronger in our technical capacity as well. And it seems like we are receiving good news from our customers, and we are on the way to make some trials with them, which is absolutely brilliant. So joining FedTech program has been one of the best decisions I ever made recently, and thank you FedTech for all that. Yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Bradley and Nasu, for those kind words, and really happy to hear that you have closed that friends and family round, and fantastic news to hear that you're making some progress with some of those research projects as well. And for the audience that's here with us today, I hope Lunano had painted a picture of what this journey might look like. And for example, Nasu spoke about the team formation process, which is going to be very critical. And one of the first things that we will be doing in this program as we start pairing all of you together to form these teams around technologies. So Bradley and Nasu, thank you so much for your time with us today. If we have questions that are coming through the chat, we will definitely pass those along to you. So once again, thank you both. All right, so I hope that was a really interesting discussion, and do bear in mind that the journey is never linear, right? There's always going to be twists and turns in the entrepreneurial path. Okay, so I promise you this is going to be the last set of slides here before we wrap up this event, the call to action. So for the inventors who are in the audience here today, if you're keen to have your technology go through the studio program with a team of entrepreneurs, we highly recommend your participation in both the Tech Talks and the studio program. And this way, we'll be able to start building a relationship with you and unlocking that entrepreneurial mindset as early as possible. So only if you're an inventor, we highly recommend your participation in Tech Talks. And this is only for inventors. There will be 5 lightweight workshops, and more information is on our website. And Robert, if you could share a link in the chat to our website, it will be fantastic. Okay, so coming back to the entrepreneurs here. So here's an overview of the Startup Studio journey, similar to what Bradley and Nasu were alluding to. This will be spread across 2 phases. So in phase 1, we will see teams delve into possible use cases, tons of customer discovery to generate market assessments, etc. And then we will then move into phase 2, where we'll see teams form early stage companies, and we'll develop them as quickly as possible. So you'll be in a position to license that technology for commercialization. And of course, at the end of phase 2, we will wrap things up with the Venture Summit event. Okay, so I believe this is the last slide for today. Please spread the word and share the application link with your peers and fellow aspiring entrepreneurs in your network. Also, diversity and representation matters. So if you have an organization in mind or someone that we should be talking with, please let us know. And as applications have already opened up, we are aiming to close applications by early. So that puts us in a pretty healthy window to kind of just go through applications here. And for the entrepreneurs, there will be an online application form you got to fill up, and there'll be a one-way video interview where we'll be asking you some really simple questions. And once you pass through those gates, we'll then invite you for a 2-way video interview. Once that is done, you'll then be able to pick and choose from a list of technologies that you are potentially interested in working through the studio. All right, so thank you all for your participation today. You've been wonderful, and a recording of this event will be posted online shortly.